Good. Good evening, everyone. This February the 27th of 2025, Election Day in Ontario. And it's now 9:13 p.m. I actually started early. I had this scheduled to start at 9:15, and I hit the go live button a couple minutes early. CBC News is already projecting that the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, led by Doug Ford, that they will be returning with another majority government. For those new who may have never seen my live stream before, welcome. This is my dog. Anna Monarchy has shown up, saying good evening to myself and anyone else showing up on the live stream. Hopefully, we'll get some engagement here. I'm hoping to have a lively chat tonight. I'm an old political junkie, and I've been involved in political campaigns going back my from the age of 12, 13, I guess about 13 years of age. I've been engaged in political campaigns for a number of different parties, for the Liberals, the NDP, the Conservatives, for even the People's Party of Canada in the last two federal elections. I'm not a traditional, I always vote Conservative or I always vote Liberal or I always vote NDP type of voter. I got to look after my dog. She has conditioned me. Regular Anna Monarchy knows this. Regulars know this. She has to get her treat or I get no peace. So shake a paw, lay down, speak, speak. Speak, speak. Where's your voice? Speak, speak. Give me a good one. Lay down. Speak, speak. There we go. A little bit of a speak. It's like she can't find her voice. I think it's called chuffing. It's like she doesn't want to bark. Oh, so where are we? Yeah, CBC is projecting a conservative majority. Yet again, this will be Doug Ford's third consecutive majority government, something that um, hasn't been achieved in Ontario for, I believe, over 50 years for a political party to win three consecutive majority governments. A bit of low hanging fruit for Doug Ford because whenever there is in Ottawa a sitting Liberal government, this province pretty much always votes conservative. And likewise, if there is a conservative government in Ottawa, then this province pretty much always votes liberal. And I'm convinced that was a main motivating factor and the reason why Doug Ford went to the polls early before he had to, because if a federal election is called and if the Liberals were to lose, and it certainly looked that way when he called the election, then if the Conservatives won in Ottawa, then chances are Doug Ford would have been defeated in a provincial election, and that would pretty much spell the end of his political career. I would wager, but it's a moot point, debatable until the end. I like what Anna Monarchy wrote with respect to Candy, the Wonder Dog, who's now gotten her TREAT and has gone away. Um, Anna Monarchy, he is writing Pavlov's dog there. Yeah, Pavlov. I think I'm Pavlov's dog. Candy has trained me as much as I have trained her. We've conditioned each other. I have to give her a treat, and she has to jump through a few hoops. Let me take a look at the results as they're showing right now. What they're saying right now is that the Conservatives are elected or leading in 75 ridings with 63 seats needed for a majority. New Democrats are elected or leading in 23, and the Liberals are elected or leading in just 14. They have the Greens. This is CBC um, Ontario Votes page, newsinteractive.cbc. I'll put the link up here. I'm not going to be sharing my screen. I don't see much point. But if anyone wants to look, I'll post that in the comment field. And there it is. And you can see what I'm looking at. 55 seats the Conservatives have elected, now 56, leading in 20, so that's 76 total, having garnered just shy of 44% of the vote. New Democrats are elected in 8, leading in 16 for a total of 24. Liberals have elected 6, leading in 8 for a total of 14. The Greens, they are projecting that they have elected 2 members. So what CBC is saying is that enough of the results have come in 2 ridings that the Greens are projected to win those 2 seats, which throws off my prediction. My prediction is not coming true so far. I was predicting, I did a short video recently within just earlier this afternoon. And in my short little video, I was predicting that the Conservatives, Doug Ford's Conservatives, would win in and around 100. My number, I pulled a number out of the air. I said 102. I figured it would be somewhere around 100. The polling, as tracked by a website called 338canada.com, which aggregates polls from various sources, Main Street, Leger, Angus Reid, all the different polling outfits, aggregates them together, weights them based on methodology, based on how recent the poll was conducted, based on the size of the poll. And then it makes projections. And they were projecting the Conservatives to get somewhere around 92 seats. My thought was that, I mean, everyone knew this election was a foregone conclusion. The Conservatives are going to be returned with a majority, and I figured that would suppress the vote, and I figured that would take the wind out of the sails of NDP and Liberal voters, and they just, what's the point? And so I thought that might swell the Conservative numbers a bit. It looks right now, it's looking like I was wrong, but it's still early in the night. However, we're looking at 3,400 out of about about 3,400 out of about 8,000 polls. So there's around half the vote, not even half the vote has been counted so far. And the current numbers are 59 seats for the elected Progressive Conservatives, leading in 17. That's a total of 76. They now have the New Democrats elected to 11, leading in 13. That's a total of 24. Liberals elected 6, leading in 8 for a total of 14. And they have an independent member is listed as elected. And my prediction was basically for the Conservatives to get in and around 100, 102. I figured the New Democrats and Liberals would split 20 evenly. I still may end up being right because there are obviously some seats not reporting yet. But we'll see how it ends up. We're at 76, 24, and 14, and you only need 63 seats for a majority. And right now, the Conservatives have already elected 59, and they're leading in 17 more. That's a total of 76. We will see how things play out. Roughly 3,400, now 3,600 of the 8,030 polls reporting. And the Conservatives are at 62 elected, 76 total, including 62 elected, 14 leading. New Democrats, 12 elected, 12 leading. Liberals, 7 elected, 6 leading for 13. So we're going to see how this plays out. I see I have a number of people watching. Don't let Antimonarchy dominate the chat, although go for it, man. Fill it up. But anyone else, you're welcome to fill in the live chat. I'm going to be talking about a number of things this evening as I check back infrequently for the results of the polling, of the voting. 3,800, we're coming up to around 3,800. And the Progressive Conservatives now have decidedly, they've gotten 64 elected members, one more than needed for a majority, and they're leading in 13 more ridings. That's 77 total. So we will see. I'll go back maybe in 5, 10 minutes, but not many people have watched that short little video I put out. It's gotten very few views, but I told a little joke in that video, and the joke is this, because everyone's going, not everyone, but a lot of people are very upset with Canadian hockey icon superstar Wayne Gretzky. And they're all upset at Wayne. At least if you watch the mainstream media, this is the impression you're given. I do not, and Monarchy will know this, and others who watch my stream regularly will know that I do not, at the house, I do not here have a satellite or a cable subscription. So I don't get inundated by the nightly news. I'm not programmed what to think, what to believe, and how to feel about things. What I tend to do is I hear what's circulating in the public discourse when I'm at work or with friends, family, neighbors at church, whatever the case. I hear what's circulating, and then those things which interest me, I then go online and I seek them out, and I try to seek out as broad a perspective of voices, of opinions, of frames of reference as I can, and then formulate my own opinion. And hearing everyone talk about Wayne Gretzky, I decided I wanted to hear what exactly the populace, what are we being programmed to think? And so I did watch a news segment put out by CBC News, crappiest journalism I've ever seen. CBC is absolutely horrible and pathetic. And what they did is they interviewed a number of people. They interviewed a guy who had started a petition to rename a street. There's a street in Edmonton called Wayne Gretzky Drive, I think it is. I think it's something of a major thoroughfare, like the Don Valley Parkway or something like that. I'm not sure. I don't live in Edmonton. I've been to Alberta a few times, but I've never driven around Edmonton, so I don't know the geography. But at any rate, they talked to him. They talked to a number of different people on the street, and they were all unanimous. Everyone that CBC talked to was expressing a negative opinion about Wayne Gretzky, about his relationship with Donald Trump, about the fact that when he came out for the ceremonial puck drop at the recently completed Four Nations Cup, which replaced the All-Star game for the NHL, he came out dressed in a suit, whereas the honorary captain of the American team, Mike Eruzione, or whatever the guy's name is, he's famous for the miracle on ice when the U.S. Olympic team, men's team, won a gold medal. They defeated Russia, and then I forget who they defeated in the gold medal final. I think it was Sweden, but it's called The Miracle on Ice. Herb Brooks is the coach. It was made into a movie, and Mike Eruzione was the captain of the team, and he was there wearing the American jersey. And Wayne Gretzky came dressed in a suit. And as Wayne Gretzky came down the tunnel, wherever the NHL had him coming out onto the ice, he actually had to walk in front. He was coming up from in behind the American players' bench, and he had to cross in front of the American players. And as he went by, he gave his fellow hockey players a thumbs up, and people are all upset about this. And it's like, give me a break. I've never been a huge Wayne Gretzky fan, full disclosure. He's not my favorite hockey player. I acknowledge that he is certainly the most, how shall I put this? He is the most impactful player in NHL history, and certainly the most talented offensive player the game has ever seen and probably will ever see. So I don't, you know, I'm not a huge Gretzky fan, but I acknowledge, obviously, the impact that man had on the game of hockey. When I think about impactful players, if I talk about baseball, who was the most impactful player in the game of baseball? Without question, in my mind, Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth sold the game, made it America's pastime. He was a guy that people would pay to go and see, and he grew the game. If I was talking about basketball, most impactful player, no question again, Michael Jordan. Grew the game exponentially. It's not to say there weren't great players before or great players after, but to me, the most impactful player in baseball, Babe Ruth, basketball, Michael Jordan, hockey, Wayne Gretzky. And, you know, was Babe Ruth the greatest player to ever play the game of baseball? He's one of them. He's in the conversation, but I don't think he comes close. I don't think he's even top three. There, Willie Mays immediately comes to my mind. Hank Aaron. There are countless players I think who were far more. Babe Ruth was a home run hitting machine. And that's what fans wanted to see, and that's what drove interest in the game, and that enabled Babe Ruth. I think he was making $100,000 at the peak of his career. We're talking 1920s, 30s. He was making more than the U.S. president. And he was asked famously by a reporter one time, you're earning more than the president of the United States. How do you justify that? And Babe Ruth famously said, I had a better year. Um, and likewise, basketball. Michael Jordan, greatest player who ever played the game. That's a debate I'm not even going to have. But he's certainly, without question, the most impactful player the NBA has ever seen. If I was going to go to a sport like soccer, I'd say Pele. Is he the greatest player who ever lived? Pele? I don't know, but he's certainly the most impactful. When it comes to hockey, I'm more of a Messier type individual. If I was building a team in and around that era, early 80s, uh, my first pick would be Mark Messier. And that's not to say that Mark Messier is a more skilled player on the offensive side of the ice, inside the blue line. He's not. Gretzky, every day of the week and twice on Sunday, is the most skilled offensive player the game has ever seen, but hockey is more than offense. Anyway, that's a long diversionary track away from the point of this. It's just to say I'm not a huge Gretzky fan, but if Gretzky wants to be friends with Donald Trump, God bless him. It's his choice. Who cares? I don't care where Wayne Gretzky goes to eat lunch or dinner. I don't care what kind of suit he wears or anything of that. It's his own business. And he's been an enormous ambassador for the game of hockey and for Canadian hockey in particular. And he's always been a gentleman. He's always represented the sport and our country incredibly well. And traits that used to be considered Canadian, to be polite, is walking by the American bench. This is an all-star type game involving it's growing the game, and he walks by the American bench and he gives a thumbs up. That shows class to my mind. As for how he chooses to attire himself, that he puts on a suit rather than the Team Canada jersey, I don't care. But CBC News wants you to care because they only talk to people who are, again, detest all things related to Donald Trump. They want everyone all up in arms about our relations with our American friends to the South. It's a disgusting situation. Kojay Malik, and I think I'm saying the name right now, finally. Kojay Malik is here as well. She's from all the way down in the great state of Florida. So I've got Anna Monarchy, who my brain, I forget where you're from, Anna Monarchy. Why am I thinking it's the West Coast? No, you're in Ontario. And Kojay Malik, yeah, she is in Florida, Floridian, listening to me ramble on about this is the Canadian political landscape night. What's happening in our country. So now we have the Ontario election going on. And for Kojay Malik and for any Americans who might be watching this, Uh, Ontario, equate that to a state. And our election is like your state election. When we talk about Doug Ford, we refer to the top elected official in our parliament building or our legislative building. We refer to the individual as the premier. It's much akin to the way the US states are led by a governor, but it's a different system. We don't have the Republican model that Americans have. We don't have a governor as an executive branch. All we have is the legislative branch. That is it. And then we have the crown represented by the lieutenant governor general. And before a law becomes law in Ontario, it has to receive royal assent. It has to be signed by the lieutenant governor general. It's considered very much a ceremonial function, basically a rubber stamp. Whatever the legislature passes, the lieutenant governor general puts his or her signature down on it. It's so ceremonial. I'm loath to admit it, but it's true. I don't even know who Ontario's lieutenant governor general is. Let's go and I'm just going to take a quick little peek, see where we're at in terms of the vote. Looks like we got it in and around, yeah, over half of the polls are reporting. So over half the vote is in. Everyone in Ontario is in a riding. Every riding is divided into any number of polls, probably, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 polls, whatever it is. And there are 8,053 different polling districts in Ontario. And they have results from pretty much 5,000, 4,998. And the way things stand right now is we have the Conservatives elected in 68 ridings, leading in 11. That's a total of 79 seats. So it actually looks like the Conservatives are going to see their majority marginally reduced just a bit. We have the New Democratic Party elected in 19 ridings, leading in 5. That's 24. The Liberal Party is elected in 12, leading in 1, 13. And then we have 2 Greens elected and 1 independent elected. What's interesting is the Liberals are far out polling the NDP, but they're not winning as many seats. The Liberals are punching up around 30%. They've got 29.6% of the popular vote compared to only 18.4% for the NDP. NDP is our left-leaning socialist party, big with unions, and the it's in a battle for second place. They have the New Democrats having elected NDP, New Democratic Party. So the New Democrats have elected 20, the Liberals only 12. And how is it that the NDP is elected 20, they've got 20 seats with only 18.4% of the vote, while the Liberals with 30% of the vote only have 12. They have 8 fewer seats, and yet they have over 10% higher, a 10% larger share of the popular vote. How is that possible? It's because Liberals, obviously, when they're winning big, and their vote is inefficient. It's probably concentrated heavily, strongly in the ridings they're winning, whereas the NDP is probably winning a lot more competitive races. But looks like my prediction is way out to lunch. The Conservatives are coming nowhere near the 100 seats that I projected they would win. They're at 79, and they're below. They were at 82 or 83 when Parliament was dissolved. So they're going to drop just a little, but it's a drop. And they've got 43.3% of the vote. And right now, that's with 5,159 polls reporting out of 8,053. Yeah, and that's where we are right now. Let's see if anything's being in the and Anna Monarchy has let me know that he's in Toronto right now for now the big smoke. I have Theo Jamalik writing, if your conservatives are like American conservatives, Canada may be the 51st state. I'm here to tell you, in a lot of ways, Canada already is the 51st state. That's not going to be a popular remark with a lot of Canadians. However, it was interesting. I was at work today. I work with a lot of young kids. You guys know, my regular subscribers know, and I'll mention it now. Anyone watching this, chancing upon my channel, who's enjoying the content, who likes my commentary, you're welcome to hit the subscribe and the like button and all that stuff. But regular subscribers know that I was in the military, Canadian Armed Forces Communications Branch, otherwise known as Signals, or Royal Canadian Corps of Signals. I was in the Army until 2021, left the Army because I was not going to get something that I considered to be not only ineffective, but also dangerous. And so I got out. I released from military service. And then starting in May 2022, I'm trying to remember exactly when I started. It's hard to believe that 3 years have basically gone by. I started working in a large retail establishment in the small little town I live in. I live in southeastern rural Ontario. Traditionally, I've always lived, grown up. I've always been living in or around a big city, big cities like Toronto, Quebec City. Spent some time growing up in the US when I was a kid. We moved down there when I was a baby. We moved to New York City, lived in New Jersey, lived in Oregon. Canadian resident, never took out US citizenship, always a Canadian citizen. And anyway, the reason I'm saying that I work with all these young kids is because I was talking to them today about what's happening in the world, the election and things of that nature, and I'll just talk about Canada becoming the 51st state. And I said, well, what do millennials think? And I did that on purpose. I'm not millennial, they said. I'm Gen Z. And I said, what? Gen what? Gen Z. So is that the last letter in the alphabet? Because in Canada, the last letter of the alphabet is Z. Americans refer to A to Z. In Canada, it's A to Z because that's American English. In Canada, we speak the Queen's English, or we used to. We're already the 51st state. We watch American TV, we watch American sports, we consume American news, we buy American products, American brands. And now all of a sudden we have our long johns in a knot because reality is hitting us square in the face. Then I would ask these kids, I say, what is the rank in the military, in the Army below captain? You have a first or second? And they universally all said lieutenant. I said, there you go again, American English. It's lieutenant. In the Canadian Armed Forces, the rank junior officer is a lieutenant, not a lieutenant. It's a lieutenant. But we are the 51st state. We speak American English. I bet you half the kids don't even spell labor or honor right. They probably spell it and use the American spelling. It's ridiculous to me. In 1988, we had an election in this country that was centered on entering into a free trade agreement with the United States of America. And we were warned that when you get into bed, when you partner up with an economy more than 10 times larger than your own, you're entering into a partnership as the junior partner. You're going to be subordinate. You're ceding your economic sovereignty, and the political sovereignty is inevitably going to follow. And so, with respect to Coach J. Malik's point, Canada already is the 51st state. We just haven't woken up and smelled the coffee yet. We're complaining at the Americans, like, how dare you promote your own industry over ours? We're acting like the 51st state, the way we're whining, bitching, and moaning over the fact that Trump is trying to promote the American steel and aluminum industry and other US industries over Canada's. Well, this is what happens when you enter into an economic relationship with an economic powerhouse that's more than 10 times larger than you are. I'm talking about the size of the economy. When it comes to population, they're 8 point something percent, 8 point something times bigger than us. Call it nine. They're like nine times greater than our population. It's not quite nine, it's 8 point something. The US is probably today about 340 ish, maybe 340 to 350 million. Canada, by contrast, is probably 40, 41, 42. So we're 8 point something, a factor of 8 point something degrees smaller than the United States of America. And we're in an economic partnership with them. We're the junior partner. They're going to dictate to us whether we like it or not. If we didn't want to be the 51st state, we never should have signed on to that free trade agreement. But it happened. And what's amazing is the world flipped upside down. And the way the world flipped upside down is way back then, 1988, it was the conservative side, the right, who was pushing free trade, and it was the left, liberals and NDP, pushing against it. Now the world has flipped around. The liberal left loves free trade. They love enriching major corporations. They love Wall Street, Bay Street. They love the big corporate money interests. That's liberal NDP now. And it's the conservatives who are on the factory floor. It is the conservatives who are supporting their at least their campaign rhetoric. It speaks to working class Canadians. The world turns upside down. If anyone else wants to comment away, I'm using StreamYard now. And what StreamYard does is it doesn't have the top chat, live chat function on it. And I hope that the messages that are being put up here, that I'm not missing any. I hope that they are populating to my screen because I do like to read. I do enjoy the engagement. So I've got Koji Malik is writing, I can't say what a country should do if I won't bear the consequences of the economic hits. But your independence should be paramount. It will be hard, but so worth it. What Canada really needed to do, what we did is we tied ourselves to the US economy. And now, to get out of that agreement, we could give a 6-month cancellation notice, notify the United States that we're withdrawing. It would bring severe economic upheaval. And we live in a world where people are not accustomed to upheaval. We live in an instant satisfaction society. We live in a world now where if you can't sleep, they say take a pill. If you're overweight, here, take a pill. If you're anxious, take a pill. If you're hungry, call this number. We'll have food to you in 30 minutes or it's free. There's no need for any pain, any misery, any discomfort whatsoever. We're going to sate your every want, need, and desire. And to decouple the Canadian economy from the American economy, or to severely restrict the amount of trade going on between our two countries, and to promote Canadian industry and to promote, and that's what we have to do. But it's going to come at a cost, and it's a cost that most Canadians are not going to be willing to pay. That's an editorial comment on my part. I do not think Canadians will be willing to pay the price that political autonomy requires. That's not the only thing happening in the world. That's not the only thing happening in the world. In the description of this video, I listed off a number of points. I'm going off script. I have 99.9% of my videos, I'm just talking off the cuff. This is thoughts that ruminate around in my brain during the course of a day, over the course of weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years. Sometimes I've had these thoughts on my mind for a long time. Appreciating Koji Malik being here and Anna Monarchy. There are several other people here. The live chat is there. I invite you to fill it up. I'm just going to do another quick check on the results of the election and see where we are. 5,900, almost 6,000 of 8,000 polls reporting. So we have the Progressive Conservatives with 70 members elected and 8 leading, so that's 78 total. We have the New Democrats with 20 seats elected, 5 leading, that's 25. We have the Liberals leading, or rather electing 12 members, leading in just one more for 13. And then we have the Green with 2 and an independent candidate. I'll look after I finish the live stream. I'm curious to know who it is, who this individual, the one independent candidate is. Typically, independents do not fare well in elections unless they happen to be a big name. The last time I remember an independent being elected federally was Canada's former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, who ran as an independent and won her seat after having been kicked out of the Liberal Party by Justin Trudeau because Jody Wilson-Raybould wouldn't give his corporate buddies, SNC-Lavalin, he wouldn't give them a sweetheart deal, what they called the deferred prosecutorial agreement, a plea bargain. He wouldn't give them, Jody Wilson-Raybould wouldn't succumb to the pressure that Justin Trudeau was placing on her to give his buddies at SNC-Lavalin a sweet deal. And she refused. And so he fired her. And so she ran as an independent candidate and won her seat because she had national prominence. People appreciated the fact of her going up against the corrupt Liberal Party machine and telling Trudeau what he could do with it. There aren't many politicians who have that kind of gravitas where they're willing to put their neck on the line, which is what she did. Most simply knuckle under, obey the party line, go along to get along. Okay, I'll give your buddies a sweet deal, Justin. That way I get to be the Attorney General. I get to sit at the cabinet table. I get to be important. And Jody Wilson had something that's very rare. Jody Wilson-Raybould, I want to say her full name, had something that is rare in the political sphere: integrity. Very rare. We have a prime minister in this country, this corrupt Liberal Party, and he's had multiple ethics violations, and yet we've been stuck with him. And now we're going to get someone who I argue is going to be even worse, and that is Mark Carney. And as I've said on this channel before, he could win. There's new polling out. Zach is here. And what is Zach saying? Let's see. How far do you live from St. Kitts, from St. Catharines? Oh my gosh. That's a ways away, Zach. That's the other side of Toronto. St. Kitts is down around Niagara Falls. That would probably be around a 3.5, 4 hour drive for me. Probably about 3.5 hours to get down to St. Kitts. I'm on the other side of Toronto. I've got Koji Malik writing, it is really weird that we can get a receipt immediately, first a 99-cent cheeseburger, but can't get a receipt for our votes. They can keep the sticker and give me a receipt. Yeah, you get a sticker sometimes when you vote. I don't know that we do it here in Canada, maybe, but probably. But I know it's a thing in the US. People put on a sticker and say that a sticker that says, I voted. And, Ontario, we've got different vote. I prefer the federal election, the way federal elections are managed in Canada, because everyone votes using the same ballot type. It's always a paper ballot federally with a circle beside each candidate's name, and you just put your X in the circle corresponding to the candidate you want to be elected in your riding, and then you put it in a box. They do that here in Ontario as well, but there are also some tabulation machines where they scan your ballot in and it automatically tabulates. I wish we had one universal system, but by and large, I do think the voting has our voting system has integrity, especially at the federal level. I don't like machines. I like old fashioned count out the ballots by hand, look at the ballot, who's the X, have scrutineers. Every candidate has the right to have a scrutineer there observing the count to make sure there's nothing untoward going on. Anyway, and we have Anna Monarchy writing. It's crazy how they make us do taxes when they already keep track of them, redo them, and audit everything anyway. You're not the only one to think that. I've thought the same thing. Many individuals have made the same comment. I mean, imagine if they simplified the tax code and made it a simple 10%, and they didn't have all these schedules to fill out and all the, in, investment schemes that they would try and push you towards for tax breaks and all manner of things. If they had it as a very simple system, what would happen to the accounting industry? What would happen to the H&R Blocks of the world? They'd lose their minds because there'd be a lot of people out of work. And so I'm just going to go down my list of the things that I want to talk about. No script, just little bullet points. So I did touch on Trump. Um, I mean, what more is there to say about Trump? What has come out within the last little while? There's always something with Donald Trump happening. He had his big cabinet meeting today. Said he'd kick out if everyone here wants Elon Musk gone, I'll kick him out then, and everyone laughed. Big Trump has a sense of humor. I don't think liberals anymore have a sense of humor. I think the liberals, the left side, is too busy, perking up their ears. What can I be offended by? You know, and that's part of the reason why I've started telling a few jokes on my stream, because I'm finding what's funny is used to be liberals who were the ones who had a sense of humor, and conservatives were serious. Now it's the conservatives who have a sense of humor, and it's the liberals who, are so serious. What can I get offended by? Who on what group can I be offended on their behalf? It's ridiculous. It's insane, this world. But the big bit of news, and I talked about this in my stream of yesterday, is that Tulsi Gabbard, Bondi, what's her name? The Attorney General of the United States of America, newly appointed by Donald Trump. Pam Bondi, I think her name is. I know the last name is Bondi. She intimated yesterday that there was going to be something of a bombshell with respect to the Epstein files. And then a number of socially conservative minded, what they call influencers, were given big envelopes that said Epstein files on them. They were parading around, but then they tore into the documents to look and see if there's anything, shocking or a startling revelation. And it was a big nothing burger. There were the names that had already been released previously. Nothing new under the sun, nothing new at all. And that was disappointing. Now there is talk that if you watch, there's a guy on YouTube, many will know him, guy who wears a toque. I think he's out of Philadelphia, somewhere in Pennsylvania. Tim, he has Timcast. I think that's the branding of his YouTube channel. And he's claiming that there is a whistleblower within the Department of Justice who's saying that there are rogue individuals within the FBI who are either destroying documents or withholding them and trying to keep the full Epstein file from being exposed. Is that true? Is it not? I don't know. I'm not Timcast. I do not have that young man's reach. He's got a footprint. He has had Trump on his show, on his podcast. Uh, I've had Jack, my firefighter friend from Petawawa, on my podcast. I'm hoping to have George next week, a buddy of mine from Montreal, a Montreal area Baptist pastor. I'm hoping to have him on next week. It turns out he can't make it this week. I was hoping to get him with Friday or Saturday, but turns out he's too busy. There's a revival going on at his church. They have a speaker coming up from the United States. Canadians and Americans, we need to unite. We need to come together. This world is shrinking, and it is shrinking very fast, and it's devolving into what I will call spheres of influence. And Canadians and Americans have always walked pretty much lockstep together for the entire history of this nation, Canada, born in 1867. Yes, there was the War of 1812, but Canada wasn't a nation back then. We were still a British colony. And here's what Code J. Malik is writing. Pam Blondie Bimbet. The name is Bondi. I don't go in for those games myself. That reminds me, Rush Limbaugh was the first guy I would see doing that to people's names. You know, he'd call the Democrats the Spendocrats and things of that nature. And it's like, I call it jingoism. I'm not sure if I'm using that term right. When it's like, oh, he took spend and he added Spendocrats. Oh, that's so sharp, please. So, yeah. Um, I prefer to that we, if you have something against someone, if what ideas does she have? That's one thing I'm finding on the right, on the conservative side of the aisle, especially in the United States, is the right is becoming a mirror image of the left. The and the more things change, the more they stay the same. Before, you weren't allowed to question the gender ideology that was being foisted on the on everyone, and you would be bullied and called all kinds of names. You're a transphobe. You're a horrible, ignorant transphobe if you don't recognize that there are an unlimited number of genders. And now it's the same thing in reverse. And it would be nice to see political discourse get to a point where we can talk about the ideas and not the individuals, but I don't know if we'll ever get there. What now? I've got Anna Monarchy said, Gordon debating Kenneth Copeland, make it happen. Oh my goodness. No, thank you, Kenneth Copeland. No interest, Joel Osteen. No interest, anyone who preaches this prosperity gospel. I have no interest whatsoever. Oh, Kenneth Copeland. Eat Me is here from Montreal. Tim Pool, he's in West Virginia. And Eat Me is here listening in Montreal. Uh, yeah, Tim Pool, Timcast. I watch him every now and again. Not huge on him. One thing I want to mention now that I've got a number of people here and a number of people who are subscribed, I have noticed that a number of the channels to which I subscribe, I have been I the notification bell has been shut off. I know that it was turned on, and a number of stations the notification bell was turned off, and I wasn't getting notifications. Happened with Jordan Peterson, happened with A Righteous Perspective, happened with what's that gentleman's name? Um, the guy who's meme. I don't know his name. He has cochlear implants. He was, I guess, legally deaf, and now with cochlear implants or cochlear implants, or however you say that. Uh, Amazing channel. Anyone I don't no skin in the game. I don't know them. They don't know me. Although A Righteous Perspective, that individual, he goes by the names Damone Wise or something like that. It's a pseudonym. He doesn't like to put his real name out there. He's from down in Baltimore, Maryland, I believe. And he and I did interact live once on his channel. Um, but let's see. Koja Malik is writing that she doesn't think the Democrats go hard enough. I don't know how they could go. They go as I have trouble, Koja Malik. They went at Trump with everything they had. They did it in 2016, in 2020, and in 2024. They threw everything they could at that guy. And and I think that's one of the things that Democrats have to wake up and realize that this is what part of the reason Trump won is because he was able to present himself very effectively as being bullied. And you would see the way the left leaning reporters would just go and attack him without mercy, just hammer as hard as they could. And you're a very nasty person. And I think most people recognize, they go, yeah, they hate him. Why? What do they hate about him so much? Why did they love Biden so much when the guy's got a son who's a bloody pedophile with all kinds of child pornography on his, and they're protecting him? And why? Like, I know Donald Trump isn't perfect, but goodness gracious, Joe Biden? Joe Biden, who incidentally in 1977, 1978, during the busing era, when in the United States, what they did is to integrate high schools. I think it was mostly at the high school level. Facing the Giants is, no, not Facing the Giants, but Remember the Titans, a famous movie with Denzel Washington, kind of gave you an idea of what busing was. They took schools and they would bus black students into predominantly white neighborhoods, and they would attend the same school as white students. They were trying to integrate the school system. And Joe Biden said he didn't want his daughters subjected to being bused into a black high school where it would be, quote unquote, a jungle. That kind of rhetoric, if that came out of Donald Trump's mouth, they would have gone crazy over it. But Joe Biden gets a pass. And this is what I always talk about on my channel. It's about how we're programmed, how we're told what to think, what to believe, and how to feel about things. When they want everyone, they want the CBC nightly news want Canadians wrapping themselves in the flag, bleeding maple syrup. They want us hating our American friends. And so they're showing you this story about Wayne Gretzky, and the only people they talk to are those who are angry at Wayne Gretzky. They're not going to talk to me. They're not going to talk to me because I'm going to offer an alternative perspective, and they're not interested in that. And this is not journalism. This is propaganda. Propaganda, you only get one side of the story. You only get one frame of reference. You don't get the spectrum. We saw it in spades during the COVID era. I have a friend, Ryan, who's a pastor here in town. He has two adopted children from Africa. So it's a multiracial family. Ryan, his wife, and his three older kids are white, and his two younger children are adopted and are black. And they went down to Ottawa for the trucker convoy to show their support for the brave, and they were brave, the Canadian truckers and their supporters who descended on Ottawa to protest for the holding up of our constitutional and charter rights, and for the rule of law, and for the right to bodily autonomy. They were promoting Canadian values, waving the Canadian flag proudly. And the nightly news wanted to frame that protest as an illegal occupation, as a bunch of knuckle dragging troglodytes, bunch of racists and misogynists, and every negative label you could imagine they were throwing on the protesters in Ottawa. And while Ryan was there with his wife and his two kids who are black, it's an interracial family. Ryan's wife was concerned. She said, I don't want to end up, I don't want the kids, I don't want us being on the nightly news. And Ryan said, don't worry. They're not going to put us on the nightly news. We break the narrative. He's walking around with his youngest up on his shoulders, white dad, black kid. You think they're going to show that? That destroys the narrative. So they only give Canadians, it's what Denzel Washington said famously on the red carpet at the Oscars once. I think it was the Oscars. He paraphrased an old quote from Mark Twain. He said, if you don't watch the news, you're not informed. And if you do watch the news, then you're misinformed. The news is there to misinform you, to frame your context so that you will spout back exactly what they tell you. Uh, I'm gonna catch up. See, J Malik is filling up the live chat. Let's see what she's saying. Democrats need to start matching energy and actions. You know what? It's an interesting thing for Canadians who may not be aware. They have something in the United States called the midterm elections. So, yeah, 2024, Donald Trump was elected. They also gained control of the House and the Senate, the House of Representatives and the Senate, collectively typically referred to as the Congress. However, in 2 years, 2026, they will have midterm elections, and a number of Senate seats and a number of congressional seats will be up for grabs. And it's this American system of checks and balances. For the next 2 years, or less than 2 years now, the Republicans control all three branches of they control well, they control all three in a fashion. They control the executive branch, that's the White House. They control the legislative branch, that's the Congress, the House, and the Senate. And they control the Supreme Court. And I forget what the numbers, how it breaks down, but there are more conservative judges than there are liberal justices. Um, we need more Jasmine Crockett's and AOC's. Quite frankly, I think AOC, and I forget the actual name of the individual, but a lot of times I think with her, I call it manufactured rage. She's just looking for an excuse to be mad about things. And you know, fight fire with fire. I always say it: fight fire with fire. All you get is more fire. Um, she's a pit bull. She's just a pit bull. And there are pit bulls on both sides of the aisle. There are Republican pit bulls in the US, and there are Democratic pit bulls. And we don't need more pit bulls. In political discourse, we need more nuanced thinking, more reasonable dialogue, but instead what we get is bombastic garbage nonsense. And Koji Malik is saying that Trump likes porn stars. Stormy Daniels, I think she was an exotic dancer. I think that's what she was. The famous non-disclosure agreement. JFK with Marilyn Monroe and goodness knows who else. Teddy Kennedy with Mary Jo Kopechne and at the Chappaquiddick River. Yeah, I mean, it's something that transcends aisles. Bill Clinton, sleaze. If you think that Monica Lewinsky was just a one-off, come on. The guy was a slime ball. And it seems to be something with men who go into politics. Look. I mean, in Canada, we had Pierre Elliott Trudeau. He dated Barbara Streisand. He dated Margot Kidder. He dated a famous cellist whose name escapes me. He was a bit of a man about town after his divorce. Yeah, something about politics and womanizing. The two almost seem to go hand in hand. Doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. They're sleazebags. John F. Kennedy. You know, we've all seen or many will have seen the famous scene at the White House where Marilyn Monroe famously sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President," in a very seductive manner, and you could see if you watch that video how uncomfortable it made Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis later. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, how uncomfortable it made her. Just reading Let's see. I was bused. I attended the white school for 2 years. It was 2 years too much. You and I are in the same rough ballpark. I moved from Portland, Oregon back to Canada permanently when I was going into grade seven. So it might have come up later. And I don't, I'm remembering my time growing up in the United States, and when I went to grade six in Portland, Oregon, there's only one kid I remember who wasn't, white, and his name was Jason. And all I know is that he was Hispanic. Was he Puerto Rican? That would probably be my guess. I know that at his house, when I go over to play with him, that his mom spoke Spanish, and Jason spoke Spanish, but never with me because I didn't know, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve, diez. Yeah. Oh, good. He can count to 10. What does he want? That's all he can say. I didn't know. I didn't even learn the basics of uno cerveza, por favor. Donde está el baño? Where's the bathroom? Let's see what's being written. The fact that the fact they control the Supreme Court is a red flag. Um, Now, with respect to AOC is actually named Bimbo Ditz. Whoops, it's actually, there we go, Alexandra. I can't even pronounce it. Everyone just calls her AOC. And I know, frankly, to be entirely honest with you, Koji Malik, not impressed. Not impressed. I think and I'll give you someone that you'll be surprised to find out that I'm Jennifer Warren. I think she's incredibly sharp. I also think she's incredibly compromised. I think she has debts to pay. But there's a story that came out. Elizabeth Warren was an academic. She taught at I think an Ivy League school. And the United States Senate and Congress was voting on a piece of legislation that would make it very difficult for individuals with large credit card debt to declare bankruptcy. And this had the potential to severely impact women who had just recently got divorced, saddled with large credit card debt from their husbands, their ex-husbands. And this bill was designed to make declaring bankruptcy very difficult because the credit card companies, the banks want their money. And it it passed the House, it passed the Senate, and then it was going to the White House. And Elizabeth Warren came into the White House, met with Hillary Clinton, sat down with her, and I saw an interview with Elizabeth Warren back at this time. This was before she became a U.S. Congressperson herself. I think she's a senator, and she walked Hillary Clinton through the whole process and said that Hillary got it right away, and then when it came to Bill Clinton, he refused to sign it. He vetoed it. So it did not become law. And Elizabeth Warren was convinced that the reason it didn't become law is because Hillary Clinton had convinced Bill not to sign it. Then Hillary Clinton got elected as senator for the state of New York. And those type of bills, the banking lobby is still working, and they managed to get it resurrected. They managed to get it out of committee. They managed to get it passed again by the House and the Senate. And guess who supported it when she was in the Senate? Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton then later supported it. And as it came out during RFK's confirmation hearing for director of HHS, Elizabeth Warren is beholden to the pharmaceutical industry, like Bernie, like all of them. They take in big money. Oh, but it's not from the company. I just get it from their employees and their executives. Oh, cool. That's a big difference, Bernie. Big difference, Liz. Uh-uh. They're controlled. Not saying they're not smart. Not saying that they haven't got a lot of, they've got more up here than I do. Elizabeth Warren, certainly. But she's owned. She's controlled. She's got debts to pay. Uh, I'm just going to catch up. All right. I read that. Let's see. And Eat Me is writing at Koj Malik that we get it. You don't like Trump. And that's fair enough. I mean, that's the one thing about my channel is irrespective. If I had a vote, and I've said this many times, if I was voting 2024, if I was an American citizen and I had to choose between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, two incredibly flawed human beings like me, we're all flawed, no one's perfect. I'm voting for Donald J. Trump every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Like Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky was a big fan of Trump's. He was at his inauguration. And now Canadians are crapping all over the guy. All. Not all. I met quite a number of people. I talked about this with people at work today, and not everyone has their heads so far up the CBC's nether regions that they can't think for themselves. And who cares what Gretzky thinks, etc., etc., etc. So, uh, what other a couple other things I wanted to talk about? Just something a little sad. Gene Hackman, one of my favorite actors, died within the last 24 hours. They found, I think, in New Mexico. I didn't even know he lived there. He'd retired from acting. I don't know when his last movie was. Two-time Academy Award winner. I saw him in the movie Unforgiven. I saw him in Hoosiers. I saw him in the French Connection. I saw him in The Replacements. I saw him in Mississippi Burning. Amazing actor. Very sad to hear about his passing. It's interesting how they say that his wife, Hackman, and their dog were all found, door unopened to their house. And it seems a little suspicious to me, and apparently they are sufficiently intrigued that they're going to be doing some investigation into it. There's speculation that could it have been a gas leak. 95 years of age, so the way I always look at it, anyone gets to be that age, they're playing on the house's money. But it's sad that such an enormous talent. My favorite all-time basketball movie, bar none, is Hoosiers, and starring Gene Hackman as Norman Dale, the coach of Hickory, the small town Indiana team that went all the way to the state final in a Hollywood. They took an actual real event where the smallest school or one of the smallest schools in the state managed to go all the way to the state title before they brought in, A, double A, triple A, where they ranked schools by size back in the 1950s. The smallest school and the biggest schools would be competing against each other, or at least they could. And this small little school of total enrollment, 150, 200 kids, went all the way to the state title and won the game. Amazing movie. Barbara Hershey, Dennis Hopper, and man. Uh, but let me read. Tell him to shut up and hit. Well, here's the thing. You're saying tell him to shut up and hit the puck. We don't really say hit the puck, shoot the puck is what we say. And don't worry, I don't expect a Floridian to know how to talk about hockey, but we say shoot the puck. But the thing is, Wayne Gretzky never makes any political pronouncements. He doesn't wade in. He's not like Stephen A. Smith now down in the U.S., famous ESPN voice. Started out in basketball. He talks about all sports. He's got an incredible repartee. Stephen A. Smith is he's fun to watch. He's entertaining. He's a bombastic, but at the same time, he can tone it down. He's a very, very, very good public speaker. I could take some tips from him in how to be engaging because he knows how to, let me tell you another thing. He's just got an amazing repartee. But Wayne Gretzky Doesn't do that. He doesn't talk about politics at all. Zero. Now, he and Trump are friends. Is a former athlete allowed to be friends? Clinton had friends. Obama had a celebrity and athletic friends. Wayne Gretzky, he's not making any pronouncement. Vote for who you want. He's been down to Mar-a-Lago. He and Trump get along. They're very simpatico. Whatever. What does it matter? Anyway, uh, Cryptomaria is saying I could list 50 things I did last week. I don't know what that's in relation to. Some people's children, just catching up. Uh, and shut the puck up. A little play on words there. What we got here from Cryptomerica. I showed up. I was nice to my coworkers. I fought with the equipment. I finished a bunch of orders and didn't run screaming from the building or crying in a corner. Um, let's see what it says here. Koji Malik is writing. A reporter told a basketball player to shut up and dribble the ball. It was a play on that. No, fair enough. Fair enough. I understood what you were saying. I was just letting you know. It'd be like me saying, I don't know. I mean, I know sports for the most part, but it would be like, hockey has its terms. It's like saying, you know, get the umpire at the basketball game to blow a whistle and throw a flag. Obviously, it's not an umpire. In basketball, it's a referee, and they don't throw flags. That's football. Mixing up our sport metaphors, but don't worry about it. Um, I had one last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is of a more serious nature. But before I get into this, again, if anyone has made it to a minute and 12 and has enjoyed the back and forth, you're welcome to subscribe. You're welcome to like the channel. Hit the bell because then you get notifications. And you got to check it back because I found out that a number of stations to which I'm subscribed, I just named 3, and there may be more. One was a Righteous Perspective. Another one was What Do You Meme? Another was Dr. Jordan Peterson. All of them, I was still subscribed, but the bell notifications had been turned off so that I wasn't being notified when new content was being put up by them. I just stumbled on them, and then I noticed, well, the bell's turned off. So I invite you, if you do get the notifications, if you do have that bell, if you have hit the bell, as they say, make sure it's still lit up. And at any rate, I was at work today and there was a young lad, not going to say his name, 20, 21, 22, early 20s, young father. And I saw him leaning in the back area, leaning up against a wall with his hand on his head and not looking very well. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I'm feeling sick. I haven't eaten anything." So and I felt his forehead, and he was clammy, and he was running what I would call a low grade fever. Probably like 99, maybe 100. Very low grade fever. But he was, and I said, "Why aren't you eating?" He goes, "I've been depressed." And I said, "Here's a young guy, young dad, 20 or so years of age." And I think there's a lot of this in the world right now. Young kid depressed. And later on in the day, I told him to go home, and he said, unfortunately, he doesn't drive, and he didn't have a ride home. He had someone coming to pick him up at the end of his shift, but if he left early, he'd have to walk 3 miles, 3+ miles, about five plus kilometers. And so uh, later on during the day, I got a chance to ask him a couple times. First time, he said, I don't want to get into it too much. It's some personal stuff. And then later, I gently pried in a bit, said, got 2 ears. I mean, been around, and he said, well, and the kid has had a rough life. Issues of abandonment by parental figures and death of individuals who raised him, things of this nature. And it was just getting him down and depressed. And this world has so many things that it can throw at us. I mean, we've been talking about the political situation both in Canada and the US. There's a lot to get depressed over. There's a lot that can rob you of your joy. And I don't want my station to do that. I don't want my station to rob anyone of their joy. I don't want my station to, you know, lead to any depression. If anything, I want to offer the antidote to that depression. And the antidote, Satan is the one who wants to rob us of our joy. Satan is the one who wants to steal our inner peace. And so I wanted to share scripture. It's from the Psalms 18, verse 2. And it goes, the Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and my horn and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. This world, we are going to be disappointed. Man is born to misery as the ashes fly upward. It's from Job. This is a tough world. And there are lots of things out there that will steal your joy, whether it be in the broader social media sphere or the news cycle or in your personal life. And there is comfort, joy, peace to be found by getting into relationship by one who will never let you down. I'm talking about the Lord God, creator of all things, who took on, he came down from glory, took on our broken, fallen condition, this human condition, so that he could be with us. That's how, for God so loved the world that he gave us his only begotten son. John 3:16, that famous passage. So as crazy as this world is, thanks for that, Eat Me. As crazy as this world is, we can find peace, joy, and comfort. And you can't get it over the internet. You cannot. You need to get into relationship. You need to get into community. And you got to put yourself out there. So I'm going to take one last look at the Ontario results. Let's see. My prediction was horribly wrong. They now have pretty much all the polls are in, not all. 7,500 out of 8,000. So that's, I'm not going to try and work out the percentage. It's 80, 90% of the polls are reporting. I said I wouldn't work out the percentage, and I'm guesstimating. But we have the PCs leading or elected in 79 ridings, and they needed 63 for a majority, and now it's just gone up. They're elected in 74, leading in 6, that's 80. So they're in and around the same seat total they had before. New Democratic Party with 18.7% of the vote. They have 25 members, will be in the legislature. And the Liberals, with darn near 30% of the popular vote, they only have 12. So they got more than 10% more of the popular vote than the NDP, and yet they won less than half the number of seats as things currently stand. So 74-25, well, that's elected. Elected in the leading, it's 80-25 to 14 to 2 to 1. So again, a very strong majority for the Progressive Conservative Party. And I think I talked about everything I wanted to. I'm going to end off with one last joke before I give the blessing. And the joke is this. I like this one. Did you hear about the man who had to go into hospital after playing a game of peekaboo? It happened. Yeah, I was playing peekaboo and then sent him to the hospital. He had to go into the ICU. Dumb joke, but I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. So receive these words, not mine, from the book of Numbers, the words that Aaron spoke over God's covenant chosen people. And the words are these: May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. And may the Lord grant you peace. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for the thumbs up. If anyone subscribed, thank you. And I'd love to hear the feedback in the commentary section for anyone watching this after the fact. If you didn't get a chance to engage live, say hi, introduce yourself. If you think I'm crazy, if you disagree with me about anything, if you think Wayne Gretzky should be ridden out of town on a rail, tarred and feathered, whatever. Share your thoughts down below, and we'll talk to you in another night or two. God bless all.